All right, everyone, ready to dive in. Today we're tackling something that affects us all, even if you don't consider yourself a tech person.
Absolutely.
Basic computer security. Sounds kind of dry, right?
Maybe a little.
But stick with us. We're using this basic computer security handout as our guide, and it's packed with insights that can actually make a difference in your daily life.
It really is.
I mean, think about it. We're talking about protecting your bank accounts, your personal information, even those,
Embarrassing photos.
exactly, the stuff you wouldn't want anyone else to see.
Yeah, we all have those.
And this deep dive is going to equip you with the knowledge and tools to keep that information safe.
No more sticky notes with passwords under the keyboard.
Exactly. We're going to break down why people make those risky choices in the first place. It's actually fascinating stuff.
Psychology plays a big role for sure.
Right. And we'll also explore the real-world impact of security breaches. Because it's not just about those big companies getting hacked, it's about you and me.
Absolutely. Data breaches can have a ripple effect on everyone.
And get this. Ever heard of social engineering? It's wild. Basically, hackers use tricks to manipulate people into giving away sensitive information.
It's like con artistry for the digital age.
Yeah, and we're going to unpack how it works so you can be prepared. So this handout, it's structured really well. Starts with the point and the mission of computer security. Then it gets into the measures that companies put in place, firewalls, encryption, all that techie
This
stuff.
is the nuts and bolts.
But then it gets really interesting because it highlights the weakest link. And guess what? It's not fancy hacking tools or some super complex code.
It's us.
Humans. We are the weakest link. The handout even gives this example of people writing down their passwords and hiding them. Like under their keyboard. Seems harmless enough, right?
You'd be surprised how many people do that. But it's really one of the biggest security risks out there.
Yeah, why is that? It seems more secure than trying to remember some crazy, complicated password.
Well, think about it. Anyone with physical access to your computer, even for a minute, could find that password. It's like leaving a key under the welcome mat.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Sure.
So even if you think you're being clever, you're actually making yourself more vulnerable. Okay, so if we're the weakest link, what can we do about it? The handout talks about safe practices, right?
It does. And a lot of it comes down to building better habits. For example, one of the things the handout stresses is never opening unexpected email attachments.
Even if you know the sender.
Even then, it could be a spoofed email.
Spoofed? Like, what does that even mean?
It means hackers can make an email look like it's coming from someone you trust, like your bank or a colleague.
Oh, wow.
But really, they're trying to trick you into clicking on that attachment. And that's how they can get malware onto your computer.
Malware, that's like a virus, right?
Exactly, a digital virus. It can steal your information, track your keystrokes, all sorts of nasty things.
Okay, so no opening suspicious emails. Got it. What else can we do to protect ourselves?
The handout strongly recommends using a password manager.
Okay, I've heard of those, but I'm not really sure how they work. Do they actually make a difference?
They can make a huge difference. Basically, it's like a digital vault for all your passwords. It remembers them for you, so you don't have to. And it generates super strong, unique passwords for each of your accounts.
So you don't have to try and remember a million different passwords.
Exactly. And it uses encryption to protect your information. So even if someone got access to your password manager, they couldn't easily decipher your passwords.
Okay, that's reassuring. So password managers are a good idea. What else?
Another big one is being careful about where you store your work files.
Oh, yeah, I do most of my work on my personal laptop. What's the issue with that?
Well, the handout suggests storing work files on secure company networks, not on personal cloud drives or devices.
Why is that? I thought cloud storage was super secure.
It can be, but if your personal account gets compromised, those work files are at risk. Company networks usually have much stricter security measures in place.
Makes sense. So it's about keeping things separate and using the right tools for the job.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to see the importance of all this. But the handout also gets into something called the human element, which sounds kind of philosophical.
It is, but it's also incredibly relevant to computer security. This is where we get into the world of social engineering.
Right, we touched on that earlier. It's like psychological manipulation, right?
Exactly. Hackers exploit human psychology, our natural tendencies to trust and to help, to trick people into giving up information.
So it's not just about breaking codes, it's about breaking people.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
The handout gives this example. Imagine someone calls you pretending to be from IT support.
Oh, I've gotten those calls before.
Right. They sound all official, maybe use some technical jargon.
Yeah, to make you think they know what they're talking about.
Exactly. And they might say there's a problem with your account and they need your password to fix it.
And people actually fall for that.
More often than you'd think. They prey on people's fear of getting in trouble or their desire to be helpful.
Wow, that's scary. So even if you have strong passwords and all that, you can still be tricked into giving them away.
Exactly. That's why awareness is so important. Just knowing that these tactics exist can make you more cautious.
Okay, so social engineering, that's definitely something to watch out for. What else does the handout cover?
Well, it goes on to talk about phishing, which is basically automated social engineering.
Phishing, like those emails that say you've won $1 million.
Sometimes, but it can be much more sophisticated than that. They might look like they're coming from your bank or a favorite online store.
I get those all the time.
Right, and the goal is to trick you into clicking on a malicious link or downloading a harmful attachment.
So it's like those spoofed emails we talked about, but they're sent out to tons of people at once.
Exactly. It's like casting a wide net and hoping to catch as many victims as possible.
So how do you tell if an email is legitimate or a phishing attempt?
The handout gives some great tips on how to spot these scams. One big one is to look closely at the sender's email address.
Like if it's from Amazon instead of Amazon.
Exactly. Look for any misspellings or strange characters. And be wary of any email that creates a sense of urgency, like you have to act immediately or something bad will happen.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. Your account is about to be suspended. Click here, right now.
Right, those are classic scare tactics. Legitimate companies don't operate like that.
Okay, so check the email address, don't panic, and what about those links in emails?
Ah, yes, the links. Never click on a link in an email unless you're absolutely sure it's safe.
Even if it looks like it's from someone I know.
Especially then. Remember, those spoofed emails can look incredibly convincing.
So how do you know if a link is safe?
The handout suggests hovering your mouse over the link before you click on it. That way you can see the actual URL where the link will take you.
Oh, that's a good tip. I never do that.
It's a simple step, but it can save you a lot of trouble. If the URL looks suspicious, even slightly off, don't click it.
Okay, I'm learning so much already. It's amazing how many things we do online without really thinking about the risks.
It's easy to get complacent, especially since so much of our lives are online now.
So it sounds like awareness is key.
Absolutely. Just knowing that these threats exist can make a big difference.
Okay, so we've talked about individual habits, but what about companies? What are they doing to protect their data and their employees?
Well, the handout goes on to cover all that.
Perfect. That's what we'll dive into in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
So we've talked about how our own actions can sometimes, well, make us a little vulnerable online, but what about companies? What are they doing to protect their data? All that important stuff.
Right, because it's not all on us, is it?
Exactly. The handout goes into some of those measures they take, doesn't it?
It does, and it's like a whole other layer of this whole security thing,
A whole other layer, like an onion.
Yeah, like an onion. And one of the most basic things, but still super important, is strong login credentials. So that means those long, complex passwords and a different one for every single account.
Okay, that's like password 101, right?
It is, but the document really stresses this: no writing them down, and definitely no sharing.
Yeah, I feel like we're hearing a broken record on that one, but it's clearly a big deal.
It's a huge vulnerability, but, it's tempting to take shortcuts. The handout mentions password managers again here and how companies can use them.
Right, so not just for us regular folks.
Nope. Think about it. Instead of having all those sticky notes with passwords everywhere, you've got this encrypted system taking care of it all.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, especially when you think about all the different accounts employees have access to.
Right. So many systems, so many passwords.
Okay, so passwords, check. But what about the actual data? Where's all that kept? And how's it protected?
Well, the handout really emphasizes secure storage.
Okay, like what does that actually mean?
So using company networks or, those cloud-based platforms, but the ones with really strong security and not just relying on individual hard drives,
So not my laptop's hard drive, got it. But why is that so important?
Well, it makes it way harder for someone to just grab the data.
Yeah.
And it also makes backups easier.
Backups, right.
Data redundancy, super important in case something happens.
Like what?
Oh, like if the hardware fails, or even worse, a ransomware attack.
Ransomware. That's where hackers hold your data hostage until you pay them.
Exactly. It's a growing threat. So the document really stresses prevention and preparation.
Okay, so how do you prevent something like that?
Well, antivirus software is a must, and making sure all your software is up to date.
Oh, those updates.
Yeah, they're annoying, but they often include security patches, like they plug up holes that hackers could use.
So it's like a constant battle. They try to find a way in, and the software updates are like blocking them.
That's a good way to think about it. It's like a digital arms race.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so antivirus updates, what else?
You know, the handout also talks about physical security, which is interesting.
Physical security, like in the real world.
Yeah, like controlling who gets into the building, using key cards, having security guards.
Oh, right. Because if someone can just walk in and plug something into a computer, that's it, game over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All that digital security might not matter much if they can just physically access the system.
Makes total sense. So it's like layers of protection in the real world and the digital world.
Yeah, multiple layers of defense.
Okay, but physical security, that's not just about locks and cameras, right?
Right. The handout actually talks about social engineering happening in person too. Like someone pretending to be a delivery driver or a repairman.
Oh, wow.
And they use that to try and get into areas they shouldn't be.
So it's like those phishing emails, but face-to-face.
Exactly. They're taking advantage of people's trust, their willingness to help.
Wow, that's kind of unsettling.
It is. So the document really emphasizes being vigilant. Don't be afraid to ask questions, like for ID.
Oh, yeah, like if some random guy shows up saying he needs to fix the internet.
Exactly. Verify why they're there. Call security if something seems off. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
Okay, I'm definitely going to be more careful about that.
Good. Because it's a common tactic.
I'm starting to see a theme here. Being vigilant, aware, that seems to be key no matter what we're talking about.
You got it. And that leads to another big point. The handout makes training and awareness for employees.
Oh, right, because it doesn't matter how good a company's security is if the employees don't know what to do, right?
Exactly. It's not just about the tech, it's about the people using it.
So like regular training on all this stuff.
Exactly. Teach them about phishing, about social engineering, about passwords, everything.
Right, so they can be part of the solution, not the problem.
That's the goal. And the handout also has this interesting bit about mystery media.
Mystery media? What's that? Like unsolved cases?
Not quite. It's about never plugging in any unknown devices.
Oh, okay, like a random USB stick.
Exactly. You find one in the parking lot or a CD just sitting on your desk. Don't even touch it.
Why? What could happen?
They can be loaded with malware, and the moment you plug it in, it infects your system.
Like a Trojan horse.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about protecting company data either. It's your personal privacy, too. That little USB could be stealing your passwords, banking info, even spying on you through your webcam.
Okay, officially freaked out. No more mystery media for me.
Good. Better safe than sorry.
But what about stuff we already use all the time, like our own devices? I mean, the handout mentions that bring your own device trend, BYOD.
It does. It's a big one and a challenge for a lot of companies.
Right. Didn't we touch on that earlier? Like letting employees use their own phones and laptops for work?
We did, and it's a tough one because, sure, it can help with productivity, but it also opens up a whole bunch of security risks.
So it's that convenience versus security thing again.
Exactly. And the handout, it acknowledges that companies need to find a balance. Like, how do you protect the data without making it impossible for people to do their jobs?
Right, because no one wants to go back to the Stone Age.
Right. Exactly. So it's about having clear policies, things like requiring strong passwords on those devices or using special software to control what can be accessed.
Makes sense. So what about laptops specifically? I feel like those are particularly vulnerable since they're so portable.
You're right. They're a target for theft. And the handout, it actually says not to let your web browser remember passwords.
Oh, that's so convenient, though.
It is, but think about it. If your laptop gets stolen and it remembers all your passwords, that's it.
Oh, good point.
It's like giving them the keys to the kingdom. And the handout has this surprisingly simple tip for protecting sensitive work files: a USB memory stick.
Wait, a regular old USB stick?
Yep. Keep the files on the stick. Keep the stick with you. Even if your laptop disappears, the data's safe.
It's like going old school, like an analog backup in a digital world.
I like that.
Okay, so laptops, check. What about phones and tablets? I feel like everyone's on those all the time now.
Right, and they come with their own set of challenges. The handout stresses strong passwords for those too.
Okay, good to know. But those are kind of a pain to type in all the time.
They are, which is why the handout suggests biometric authentication if you can.
Oh, you mean like fingerprint scanning?
Yep. Because, those devices are practically extensions of ourselves these days. We take them everywhere.
Right. It's easy to forget just how much information is on them.
It is. And just like with laptops, you got to be careful about the apps you install. They can be a way for malware to sneak in.
So stick to the official app stores.
Definitely. And read the reviews before you install anything, just like you check out a product online.
So it's all about being smart, being aware, same as with everything else.
Exactly. And don't forget those updates. Keep everything up to date.
Oh, right. Those updates.
They might be annoying, but they're important.
Okay, I'm getting the message.
Yeah.
So is there anything else in the handout that really stands out to you?
I think the biggest takeaway from this whole section is that security is a shared responsibility. It's not just companies putting tech in place. It's about all of us being aware and taking steps to protect ourselves.
Right, so it's like a team effort.
Exactly. And that leads right into the next part of the handout, which is all about emerging threats and how we stay ahead of the game.
Perfect. Because this digital landscape, it's always changing, right?
Yes.
So let's dive into that in the final part of our deep dive.
Oh.
All right, so we've talked about what we can do, what companies can do, but the thing is, technology, it never stands still.
It really doesn't.
So what about new threats? Stuff that's just emerging. Does the handout even touch on that?
It does. And it's not exactly a rosy picture. You see, as the good guys get better at security, the bad guys, they up their game too.
So it's like a constant arms race.
Exactly. Always trying to stay one step ahead.
Okay, so what's coming next? What should we be prepared for?
Well, the handout, it specifically mentions artificial intelligence, AI, and how it can be used for, some pretty scary stuff.
AI. For hacking. How does that even work?
Think about those phishing emails we talked about. Now imagine an AI that can write them, but make them so convincing, so personalized.
So it knows exactly what to say to trick you.
Exactly. Or even imagine getting a voice call and it sounds just like your boss asking for some information.
Oh, wow.
But it's not your boss. It's an AI-generated deepfake.
Deepfake. I've heard of those, but I thought those were just for videos and stuff.
It's getting more sophisticated all the time. And because AI can process information so fast, it can launch attacks on a huge scale.
So millions of phishing emails all at once, all personalized.
It's a lot to think about, but the handout stresses staying informed. The more we understand how this stuff works, the better we can defend against it.
Right. Knowledge is power, like they say. But what about practical steps? Is there anything we can actually do?
Absolutely. The handout really pushes continuous learning. Stay up to date on security news, attend webinars, read articles, just be aware of what's happening.
So subscribe to some security blogs, follow some experts on social media.
That's a great start because the threat landscape, it's always evolving and we need to evolve with it.
The learning never stops.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to question things. If something feels off, if your gut's telling you it's a scam, trust it. Don't click that link. Don't give out your information.
Better safe than sorry, right?
Absolutely. And the handout, it leaves us with this really important point, the most important security measure we have. It's common sense.
Common sense, just using your brain.
Exactly. Because technology can only do so much. Ultimately, it comes down to us to be aware, to be vigilant, to make smart choices online.
I like that. It puts the power back in our hands, doesn't it?
It does.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap things up. This deep dive, it's been eye-opening, and I feel like I've learned a lot.
Me too. It's amazing how much there is to know about this stuff.
And it's so important for everyone, even if you don't consider yourself a tech person.
Absolutely. Security is everyone's responsibility.
So to all our listeners out there, stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay safe.